Emma Hartford barely noticed the champagne glass trembling in her hand as she navigated through the crowded gallery opening. The white walls displayed her best friend, Monica's vibrant abstract paintings, each piece more stunning than the last. Tonight should have been perfect. She had just secured the biggest contract of her fledgling interior design career with the prestigious Westfield hotel chain, and for once, everything seemed to be falling into place for her and her 5-year-old daughter Lily. The celebration champagne flowed freely, and Emma found herself accepting glass after glass from enthusiastic well-wishers, congratulating her on the hotel contract. By 10 o'clock, the room had started spinning in a way that felt wrong, too intense for the amount she had consumed. Her head pounded with each heartbeat, and a wave of nausea crashed over her without warning. Stumbling toward the exit, Emma mumbled apologies as she pushed through the crowd. The cool night air hit her face like a slap, but instead of clearing her head, it made everything worse. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else, barely responding to her commands as she lurched toward the parking garage across the street. A rough hand grabbed her elbow, jerking her sideways into the shadows between buildings. Through her blurred vision, Emma made out a man with greasy hair and alcohol-thick breath leaning too close. His fingers dug into her arm as he tried pulling her toward a dark sedan parked nearby. "Let go," she slurred, trying to wrench her arm free, but her body refused to cooperate with the urgency screaming in her mind. "Come on, sweetheart. You need a ride home." The man's voice dripped with false concern that made her skin crawl. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared behind the man, moving with lethal grace. A strong hand clamped down on the stranger's shoulder, spinning him around with enough force to make him release Emma. She staggered backward, catching herself against the brick wall as her rescuer stepped between her and danger. The lady said, "Let go. I suggest you find somewhere else to be." The voice was deep and commanding, carrying an authority that brooked no argument. Through her foggy perception, Emma registered her savior was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders filling out an expensive-looking charcoal suit. Dark hair caught the streetlight, and even in her compromised state, she noticed how devastatingly handsome he was. The greasy-haired man muttered something hostile but backed away when Emma's rescuer took a step forward. Within seconds, the threat had disappeared into the night, leaving Emma alone with the stranger who had saved her. Her legs finally gave out completely, but strong arms caught her before she hit the pavement. The world tilted sickeningly as she was lifted with surprising ease, cradled against a chest that smelled incredible. Expensive cologne mixed with something masculine and comforting. "Can you tell me your address?" The man's voice rumbled against her ear. "I will get you home safely." Emma tried to form words, but her tongue felt thick and uncooperative. Fragments of thoughts tumbled through her mind. Home. Lily was with her mother tonight. Derek might be watching her apartment. Derek always watched, always followed, always appeared when she least expected him. No home. She managed to mumble. Derek there, watching, always watching, the arms holding her tightened slightly. "Okay, you are safe now. I promise nothing bad will happen to you." Consciousness slipped away like sand through her fingers. She was vaguely aware of being settled into soft leather seats, of the smooth motion of an expensive car, of being carried again through pristine hallways that smelled like money. A comfortable bed materialized beneath her, and gentle hands removed her shoes. Someone helped her out of her ruined dress, the fabric torn from her earlier struggle, and into something soft that smelled like the man who saved her. Sleep pulled her under completely, but even in her dreams, she felt safe in a way she had not experienced in years. Morning arrived with brutal intensity. Emma's head throbbed with each heartbeat, and her mouth tasted like something had died in it. Forcing her eyes open required tremendous effort, but when she finally managed it, confusion replaced her physical discomfort. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, painted pristine white with elegant crown molding that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Pushing herself upright sent waves of nausea rolling through her stomach, but she fought through it to survey her surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows dominated one wall, offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline from what had to be at least 30 floors up. Modern furniture in shades of black, gray, and white filled the space with minimalist precision. Everything screamed wealth and taste, two things decidedly absent from her cramped downtown apartment. Looking down, Emma discovered she was wearing an oversized white silk shirt that definitely belonged to a man. Underneath, she still had on her underwear, but nothing else. The shirt carried that same incredible scent from last night, expensive. Cologne mixed with something uniquely masculine that made her pulse quicken despite her confusion and embarrassment. The bedroom door opened, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. The man who entered was possibly the most attractive human being she had ever seen in person. Tall with perfectly tousled dark hair, piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through her, and a jaw that could cut glass. He wore black dress pants and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that made her stomach flutter in ways that had nothing to do with her hangover. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty." His voice matched her memory from last night, deep and smooth like aged whiskey. "I was starting to wonder when you would wake up." Emma clutched the silk shirt tighter around herself, suddenly hyper-aware of how little she wore. "Who are you? Where am I? And why am I wearing your shirt?" His lips curved into an amused smile that made her heart skip. "I am Jonathan Steele. You are in my penthouse, and you are wearing my shirt because your dress was completely ruined last night." "Ruined how?" Panic edged into her voice. "What happened to me?" Jonathan set a steaming cup of coffee on the nightstand and leaned against the wall, those blue eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "Relax. Nothing inappropriate happened, I promise. I found you outside the Morrison Gallery around midnight. You were barely conscious, and some guy was trying to take advantage of your condition." Fragments of memory clicked into place. The greasy-haired man. The parking garage. Strong arms catching her. Derek. She had mentioned Derek Dodd the creep in the blue jacket. She whispered, touching her temple as the memory crystallized. "That's the one." Jonathan's expression darkened slightly. "I was leaving a business dinner at the restaurant next door when I saw what was happening. Let's just say he decided to find someone else to bother after our conversation." Despite her embarrassment, gratitude washed over Emma in waves. "Thank you for helping me. But why didn't you just call me a cab or take me to a hospital?" Jonathan pushed off from the wall, moving closer. "You were pretty out of it. When I asked for your address, you kept mumbling something about not wanting to go home because Derek would find you there. I figured you were safer here. At Derek's name." Emma's stomach twisted with familiar anxiety. Derek Walsh, her ex-boyfriend who had transformed charming to controlling to downright terrifying over their 2-year relationship. She had finally gathered the courage to leave him 4 months ago, but he had been making her life miserable ever since. Showing up at her apartment unannounced, following her to work, appearing at social events like a ghost she could not exorcise. "I cannot believe I told you about Derek." She covered her face with her hands, mortified. "You were pretty chatty once I got some water into you." Jonathan's tone gentled. "You told me you're an interior designer, that you just landed a big contract with the Westfield hotel chain, and that some guy named Derek was making your life miserable." 3 weeks had transformed Jonathan Steele's penthouse from a sterile showplace into something approaching a home. Emma stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by fabric samples in rich jewel tones, paint swatches ranging from warm navy to deep forest green, and furniture catalogs marked with sticky notes. The changes were already visible. One accent wall now glowed in a sophisticated shade of blue that caught the afternoon light beautifully, and carefully selected plants brought life to corners that had previously felt cold and empty. Working with Jonathan had become the highlight of Emma's days, though she tried desperately not to examine why too closely. Their meetings, initially scheduled for an hour each afternoon, regularly stretched into evening, filled with conversations that ranged far beyond color palettes and furniture selections. She had learned that Jonathan built his tech empire from nothing, working 18-hour days to prove himself after aging out of foster care at 18 with nothing but determination and a laptop he had saved 2 years to afford. Had learned that Emma's passion for design stemmed from a childhood spent moving from apartment to apartment with her single mother, always trying to make each new temporary space feel like home. That her daughter Lily was the light of her life, and that becoming a mother at 23 had been terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. The attraction between them had been immediate and undeniable, simmering beneath every professional interaction. Emma caught herself watching the way Jonathan's hands moved when he gestured, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed at something she said, the way he listened to her ideas with genuine interest, instead of the patronizing tolerance she had experienced from other wealthy clients. Jonathan emerged from his home office, loosening his tie after what appeared to be a marathon video conference session. His hair was disheveled in a way that made Emma want to run her fingers through it, and there was a tiredness around his eyes that triggered protective instincts. She had no business feeling for a client. "How did the presentation go?" she asked, looking up from the lighting fixture catalog she had been studying. "Better than expected." Jonathan walked over to examine the new leather chairs she had arranged in a conversational grouping near the windows. "The investors love the sustainable technology angle, and we should have funding approved by next week. You look exhausted." Emma set down the catalog and moved toward him, her professional boundaries blurring as concern overrode caution. "When was the last time you took a real break?" Jonathan's gaze followed her movement, and she saw the way his eyes darkened as they traveled over her figure in the fitted black dress she had chosen for their dinner. "Meeting scheduled for later. I will rest when this deal is closed. That is what you said about the last deal." She stopped just close enough to smell his cologne, that scent that had haunted her dreams since waking up in his shirt weeks ago. "Are you worried about me, Emma Hartford?" His voice dropped to that low, intimate tone that never failed to send shivers down her spine. Before she could answer, her phone rang with a jarring interruption. Derek's name flashed on the screen, and her stomach immediately clenched. Over the past 3 weeks, his messages and calls had escalated from annoying to disturbing. He had somehow discovered she was working for Jonathan, and his texts had become increasingly hostile and possessive. "Don't answer it." Jonathan's voice was firm, recognizing the fear that flickered across her face. But Emma knew from bitter experience that ignoring Derek only made him worse. With a resigned sigh, she answered the call and put it on speaker so Jonathan could hear. "Hello, Derek. Emma, baby. I have been trying to reach you." Derek's voice dripped with false sweetness, the tone he used when he was trying to manipulate her. "I miss you. I know you think you are angry with me, but we can work through this." "I am not angry, Derek. I am done. We have been broken up for 4 months, and I have moved on." "Moved on?" Derek's voice sharpened like a blade. "With who?" "That rich bastard I saw you having dinner with last week." Emma's blood turned to ice. He had been watching her again, following her to her meetings with Jonathan. "My personal life is none of your business anymore." Jonathan stepped closer, his jaw clenched with barely contained fury. He gently took the phone from Emma's trembling hands. "This is Jonathan Steele. You need to stop contacting Emma. She has made it clear she doesn't want to see you." Derek laughed, a sound devoid of any real humor. And who are you supposed to be? Her new boyfriend? Let me guess, some rich guy who thinks he can buy anything he wants, including my girlfriend.ex-girlfriend? Jonathan's voice carried steel beneath the calm surface. And Emma is not something to be bought or owned. She is an incredible woman who deserves to be treated with respect, something you clearly never learned. Respect. Derek's voice grew louder, more aggressive. You don't know her like I do. She needs someone to take care of her, to make decisions for her. She is too naive to survive on her own, especially now that she has a kid to worry about. Emma felt anger surge through her veins, burning away the fear. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself and my daughter. I have my own business, my own apartment, and my own life that does not include you. You think you are so independent now, Derek sneered through the phone. But you will come crawling back when this rich boy gets bored with you. They always do. Girls like you are just temporary fun for guys like him. Jonathan's free hand clenched into a fist, but his voice remained steady and controlled. This conversation is over. If you contact Emma again, I will have my lawyers file for a restraining order. And trust me, I have very good lawyers with a track record of winning. You cannot threaten me, Derek shot back. Isabella belongs with me, and I am not giving up. Emma noticed Derek had called her by the wrong name, a slip that revealed how little he actually knew or cared about her as a person. Jonathan ended the call and immediately pulled Emma into his arms as she started to shake Dot. Hey, it is okay. He cannot hurt you. Jonathan's hand rubbed soothing circles on her back. You don't understand. Emma pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his comforting scent. Derek doesn't make empty threats. When he wants something, he does not stop until he gets it. He made my life hell for months before I finally left, and it has only gotten worse since then. Then he is about to learn what happens when someone threatens someone I care about. Jonathan tilted her chin up so she had to look into his intense blue eyes. The word care hung between them, loaded with implications neither had been ready to voice until this moment. Emma felt her heart rate accelerate as she realized how much this man had come to mean to her in such a short time. It was more than attraction, more than gratitude for the job and protection he offered. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, she had started falling for Jonathan Steele, and the realization terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Jonathan. Her voice came out breathless, her hands fisting in his shirt. I know we agreed to keep this professional. I cannot pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just business. His thumb traced along her jawline, leaving fire in its wake. You are the first person in years who has looked at me and seen Jonathan instead of a bank account or a business opportunity. You challenge me, make me laugh, and make me want things I thought I had given up on. Before Emma could respond, he lowered his head and captured her lips with his. The kiss started gentle, almost hesitant, as if he was giving her the chance to pull away. But when Emma melted against him and kissed him back, it deepened into something passionate and desperate. All the tension and attraction that had been building between them for weeks poured into that kiss. Emma's fingers tangled in his hair while his hands slid down to her hips, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Emma kept her eyes closed for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Every rational part of her brain screamed warnings about getting involved with a client, about the power imbalance, about moving too fast after Derek. But her heart, the part that had been dormant for so long, was singing Emma. Jonathan's voice was soft. Look at me. She opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. This complicates things, she whispered. Everything about you complicates things. He smiled slightly. But I don't care anymore. I am tired of pretending that working with you is just business. I am tired of watching you leave each evening and wishing you would stay. You are my client. Emma tried one last time to inject reason into the situation. This could ruin my professional reputation if people think I am sleeping my way to success. Then we will be discreet. Jonathan's hands rested on her hips, his thumbs tracing small circles that made thinking difficult. At least until the project is finished and no one can question your professional integrity. After that, I want to take you to dinner as Jonathan and Emma, not as client and designer.
The offer was tempting, incredibly tempting. But Emma had learned hard lessons from Derek about moving too fast, about ignoring red flags in favor of chemistry. I don't know if I can handle your world. The wealth, the attention, the pressure. I am just a small-time designer from a working-class family trying to give my daughter a better life. Jonathan's expression grew serious. My money does not define me, Emma. It is just something I have, not who I am. I grew up in foster homes, remember. I know what it is like to have nothing. And you are not just anything. You are brilliant, creative, strong, and beautiful. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life. The sincerity in his voice made Emma's resolve crumble. What about Derek? He is not going to just disappear because we want him to. He will make trouble if he finds out about us. Let me worry about Derek. Jonathan's voice took on a harder edge. I have resources he does not, and I will not let him hurt you or Lily. Emma studied his face, seeing the determination there, the protective instinct that made her feel safer than she had in years. Maybe it was time to take a risk, to trust someone new instead of letting Derek's control continue to dictate her choices. Okay, she said quietly, but we take this slow. I need time to figure out how I feel about all of this, and I need to think about Lily. She comes first, always. Jonathan's smile was radiant, transforming his usually serious face. As slow as you want. I am not going anywhere. He leaned down to kiss her again, softer this time. A promise rather than a demand. Emma allowed herself to sink into the feeling, to imagine what it might be like to be with someone who supported her dreams instead of trying to control them. But as they held each other in the warm glow of the evening light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the building across the street, or the camera with the long telephoto lens capturing their intimate moment in high-definition clarity. The manila envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in Emma's hands as she stood frozen on her apartment building's front steps. Derek sat on the concrete ledge, wearing that fake smile she had learned to fear during their relationship, the one that meant he thought he had one. Hello, beautiful. Derek stirred as she approached, his movements casual and confident. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, and if you don't leave right now, I am calling the police. Emma pulled her phone from her purse with shaking fingers. I don't think you want to do that. Derek held up the envelope, waving it slightly. Not when I have such interesting photos to show them. Very interesting photos of you and your rich boyfriend. Emma's stomach dropped as understanding crashed over her. What photos? Derek opened the envelope slowly, deliberately drawing out her anxiety. He pulled out several high-resolution images of her and Jonathan kissing in the penthouse, clearly taken from outside the building with a powerful telephoto lens. There were at least a dozen photos from different angles and different days, documenting their growing relationship with damning clarity. Turns out your new boyfriend is not as careful about privacy as he thinks he is. Derek's smile turned cruel. I wonder what the business press would make of these photos. Rich tech CEO seduces his interior designer. I bet his investors would have some interesting questions about his judgment and professionalism. Emma felt sick as she looked at the photos, realizing how they could be twisted to damage both her reputation and Jonathan's business. What do you want, Derek? Simple. Derek stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the familiar cologne that used to comfort her and now made her nauseous. Come back to me. Leave the rich boy and remember where you belong. Do that, and these photos disappear forever. Nobody ever sees them, and your precious reputation stays intact. And if I don't? Emma forced herself to hold his gaze, refusing to show the fear coursing through her. Derek's smile turned vicious. Then I make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of woman you really are. Your client list, your professional reputation, his business deals. I will destroy it all. Every design firm in the city will know that Emma Hartford sleeps with her clients to get ahead. Every investor considering Jonathan Steele's company will question his judgment and ethics. I have contacts at 3 major business publications who would love this story. Emma stared at the man she had once thought she loved, seeing clearly for the first time the monster he had always been underneath the charming facade. You are sick, Derek. This is not love. This is obsession and control. Call it whatever you want. Derek shrugged, completely unrepentant. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I start making phone calls and sending emails. Think about what this will do to your daughter when you cannot find work anymore. Think about what it will do to your boyfriend when his company stock tanks because of the scandal. As Derek walked away, whistling casually as if he had not just threatened to ruin multiple lives. Emma sank down onto the steps and buried her face in her hands. For the first time in weeks, she felt completely alone and utterly trapped. The choice before her seemed impossible. Give up the best thing that had ever happened to her, or watch Derek destroy both her career and the man she was falling in love with. Emma sat there for a long time, tears streaming down her face, before finally pulling out her phone. She looked at Jonathan's number, her finger hovering over the call button. He needed to know. They were in this together now, whether she wanted to involve him or not. Taking a shaky breath, she pressed call. Jonathan answered on the first ring. Emma, is everything okay? You sound upset. Can you come to my apartment? She tried to keep her voice steady. We need to talk about something important. I will be there in 15 minutes. His response was immediate, no questions asked. Just instant support. True to his word, Jonathan arrived 14 minutes later, taking the stairs 2 at a time when he saw her still sitting on the front steps. Emma launched herself into his arms before he could speak, holding onto him like he was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. What happened? Jonathan guided her inside and up to her modest apartment, his arm protective around her shoulders. Once inside, Emma handed him the envelope with trembling hands. Jonathan's expression grew darker with each photo he examined. When he had seen them all, he carefully set them on her small kitchen table and turned to her with barely controlled fury. How long has he been stalking you? His voice was dangerously quiet. I don't know. Weeks, maybe longer. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. He confronted me tonight with these. He wants me to come back to him, or he will send them to the press and destroy both our reputations. Like hell he will. Jonathan pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. We are not letting him blackmail you, Emma. This ends tonight. Over the next hour, Jonathan made a series of calls while Emma listened in amazement. He contacted his head of security, his legal team, and finally, a private investigator he had worked with before. By the time he finished, a plan had begun to take shape. The private investigator called back within 2 hours with information that made Emma's head spin. Derek Walsh had a history she had known nothing about. 3 previous girlfriends had filed restraining orders against him in other states. He had outstanding warrants for harassment in 2 jurisdictions. There was even evidence he had drugged one woman's drink at a bar, though charges were never filed due to lack of evidence. Emma listened to all of this in shock. How did I not know any of this? He was careful, Jonathan said gently, holding her hand. These kinds of men are experts at hiding their true nature until they have you trapped. But now we have leverage. The next morning, Jonathan's legal team contacted the police with all the evidence the private investigator had compiled. They also reached out to Derek with a message that he had 2 choices. Destroy the photos and leave Emma alone permanently, or face arrest on the outstanding warrants plus new charges for stalking, harassment, and attempted blackmail. Derek, true to form, made the wrong choice. He contacted a tabloid website with the photos, trying to spin a story about Jonathan Steele's inappropriate relationship with his employee. But before the story could go live, the police arrested Derek at his apartment. They found not just the blackmail photos, but also hundreds of surveillance photos of Emma taken over months, detailed notes about her schedule, and disturbing writings about how she belonged to him. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek was charged with multiple counts of stalking, harassment, attempted blackmail, and violating restraining orders from his previous victims. Jonathan's legal team worked with the tabloid's legal department to kill the story, explaining that publishing photos obtained through criminal stalking would open them up to massive liability. 3 days after Derek's arrest, Emma stood in Jonathan's penthouse as the last pieces of furniture were positioned. The transformation was complete. What had once been a cold showplace now felt warm and lived in, with deep blue accent walls, thriving plants in every corner, comfortable seating arrangements that invited conversation, and carefully chosen artwork that reflected Jonathan's journey from foster care to success. "It is perfect," Jonathan said softly, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "You made this place feel like a home. We made it together." Emma leaned back against him, finally allowing herself to relax fully. Derek was in jail, bail denied due to flight risk and the outstanding warrants from other states. His lawyer had advised him to accept a plea deal that would keep him locked up for at least 3 years. "Emma, there is something I want to ask you." Jonathan turned her around to face him, and she was surprised to see nervousness in his eyes. "These past weeks with you have been the best of my life. You challenge me, inspire me, and make me want to be a better man. I know we said we would take things slow, but I cannot imagine my life without you in it." To Emma's shock, Jonathan knelt down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I am not asking you to marry me right now. I know you need time, and I respect that. But I am asking you to consider a future with me. This is a promise ring. A promise that I will wait as long as you need. A promise that I will always protect you and Lily. A promise that when you are ready, I will be here." Tears streamed down Emma's face as she looked at the beautiful sapphire ring nestled in the box. It was not a traditional engagement ring, but something more thoughtful, more personal. The deep blue stone matched the accent wall behind them, the color she had chosen to bring warmth into his life. "Yes," she whispered, holding out her hand. "Yes to considering our future. Yes to taking this journey together. Yes to not letting fear control my choices anymore." Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, capturing her lips in a kiss that held promise and passion in equal measure. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling through happy tears. 6 months later, Emma Hartford stood in that same penthouse, now wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of blue roses. Lily, adorable in a flower girl dress, stood beside her, clutching a basket of petals. A small group of close friends and family filled the living room, including Emma's mother, who was crying happy tears, and several of the foster kids Jonathan mentored through his foundation. "I never thought I would be here," Emma whispered to Monica, her maid of honor, as they waited for the ceremony to start. "A year ago, I was invisible, struggling to build my business and scared of my ex. Now look at me." "You were never invisible," Monica corrected gently. "You just needed someone who could really see you. And Jonathan sees you perfectly." As the music started and Emma walked toward Jonathan, she realized Monica was right. She had not changed who she was. She had simply found someone who valued her strength, her creativity, her independence, and her heart. Someone who made her feel safe enough to be fully herself. Jonathan's eyes lit up as she approached, and Emma knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice. Not the safe choice or the easy choice, but the right one. The one that honored her worth and her dreams. The one that showed Lily what real love looked like. "I love you," Jonathan mouthed as she took his hand. "I love you too," Emma mouthed back, squeezing his fingers. And as they spoke their vows in the space they had transformed together, Emma Hartford was no longer invisible. She was seen, valued, and loved exactly as she was. And that made all the difference.